Welcome to Geek Out Weekly, the podcast where we geek out not so strongly on a roughly 7-day basis. I'm your host Aadil, and this week I'm joined by the lovely Lucy.
Hello, not a geek, which is
You say
which
that,
is
but
definitely not true.
I was gonna say, and this week we're talking about season 4 of Castlevania, the Netflix series, but also the whole thing because this was the
Yeah,
final season.
yes, in this timeline, in this story, apparently there's going to be more, but probably going off on different
Yeah, let's start out.
Castlevania stories, which whatever those are.
I believe there'll be some Vanias and some castles.
Sounds about right.
What? Just as always, let's just ask you what your initial thoughts of the season was.
I thought it was good. I thought it finished really well, and I think I mean this season was a few more episodes than usual, wasn't it? Because on each series, they'd add a few more episodes, but it still felt like it had enough time to wrap up enough loose ends. It had a nice ending. I think you know, I think overall, like the animation and the writing and the action scenes just got better over time, and this felt like a grand finale.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. So yeah, the first series was 4 episodes, then it was 8 episodes, and the last season 3 and 4 were both 10 episodes. And I think you're right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Having the longer 10 episodes allowed it to give each of the sort of storylines
Hmm.
breathing room. Some of them maybe less so, like the vampire side of things. I think were
Yeah.
quickly dealt with, but the fact that we got that in general is pretty good. I have to confess, you know this, but I'm definitely not a person who's played the Castlevania games that much, while you, I believe, are somewhat of a fan.
Yeah, I've played quite a few of them, but I think that's just a testament to how this is probably a video game IP that's been taken and treated with correctly. Like it's not just rehashing everything from the games or from that particular storyline. And people who haven't played the games, who don't even know what a Castlevania is, can still get into it, enjoy it for what that story is. But you know, people of fans of the games and overall can also pick up on like little Easter eggs and little things like that and enjoy that, but also just be like, this is taking from a lot of different elements of the Castlevania storyline, which is like very convoluted and very storied, and it's like not something I pay attention to, but give taking like the structure of that and running with it and making a really good show that you don't need to know much about Castlevania to enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like a cool vampire uh, anime type thing aimed at
Yeah.
adults. I think a
Yes.
large part of that is it's the whole series has been written by Warren Ellis, who's a graphic novelist of note.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and so I think just that cohesiveness, the fact that every episode was written by the same person who has
Yeah.
experience in um serialized fiction, right? Like it really shows because it's just so well written. Even the
Yeah.
earlier seasons with like shorter episode counts, like season 1 was not a lot happened really in its
No.
four
Yeah.
episodes, but it was still like I want to see the rest of this story.
Yeah.
Um, and they even sort of end season 4 open in the sense of like this is a good wrap up for most of the people, but there is like
Mhm.
it's not like a and they lived happily ever after so much as a and that they will live their lives, and it's just enough tension to not feel kind of contrived, I think.
Yeah.
um
Well, that I like that about this because a lot of the Castlevania games, it's like, okay, you've killed Dracula, you destroyed the castle, cutscene,
yeah,
very small cutscene of someone looking at the castle as it like crumbles into oblivion. and credits roll. So it was nice seeing like, oh, how do we actually rebuild and come back from all the horrors that that was set upon us by Dracula or his henchmen. Or so I like that about this, how they actually. It wasn't just like, okay, last boss at the at the end of the game, which I thought was really cool. Like it was kind of like okay, the last. We can go into spoilers, right?
Oh, we're talking about the whole series
Yeah,
as much as you want. Yeah, yeah.
good. Because the final boss in the series was Death, and it's like rightly so, because in every game, Death is just like the hardest battle. No matter where it comes in the game, Death is just it's a bastard at any time in any of those games. So I thought
So
that was
that is a
very
character
fitting.
in the games. It's one thing I wasn't sure
Yeah,
about.
yeah. And he's literally the worst. He's usually like the stumbling block. It's like if you can get past Death in any of the Castlevania games, you can go on and defeat it. But he's usually the worst, like throwing sickles everywhere, and it's just the worst. So I thought that was a really fitting end to the show. But yeah, it's nice how that happened, and it isn't just like, okay, cut to the castle being destroyed. It's like, no, we're gonna pay attention to the characters. What is the aftermath after all this horror and destruction?
Yeah, I think and basically anyone who had somewhat of a soul in the sense of caring about more than themselves and their own
Yeah.
path, with maybe one exception, and that includes Dracula, right? Like, just
Hmm.
gets a kind of a happy-ish ending.
Yeah.
Again, open-ended, but uh,
It's
yeah.
only Camilla who got like done dirty, and who
Who?
even she decided to, the vampire lady who cries
Lenore?
blood. No, Camilla.
Oh, Camille. Yeah, I mean, but she
Yeah.
was. That was the point. It was that. I mean,
Yeah.
they had Lenore and, oh, what's his name? Her human
Oh,
necromancer man.
not Trevor, Simon,
Yeah.
all the bell ones.
What is his name?
Oh my god, it's gonna bother me now.
Yeah, me as
The
well. Um,
Alucard, Justice,
Hector.
no, Julius, wasn't it? Hector, yeah, so,
Hector. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, like they have this conversation, in the aftermath of their sort of in their denouement of their storyline,
No.
and she talks about the strength of vampires is stability and wanting the world not to change, and then and meanwhile her sister was looking for power, and the two can be very close and intertwined, but ultimately the power corrupts and eats you up,
Yeah.
much like a vampire or whatever. And then she wanted strength, but also I think that much like a vampire line really did feel like him pointing out that it's in her nature to become her sister, and that's why she chooses to
Yeah.
not be a caged animal. Like part of it is like, I don't want to be stuck here, but like you're an immortal vampire, like you can find your way out eventually. I think it meant more that she's like, I don't want to become like my sister. I don't want to live like you. Like this conversation was eventually she moved from strength to power hungry, and then when
Mhm.
Hector was like, yes, like a vampire, like you're always hungering, and I think she was just like, well, I'm not going to trap myself here to eventually become the villain. I'm going to go out on my
Yeah.
own terms. That's how I
I,
read
I,
that scene.
yeah, I read it in a different way. It's like, I just don't want to be a slave here. It's like
Mm,
our kingdom has now fallen. What else is there left? And because she knows that she's not power hungry like Carmilla. She
mm,
was opposed to those plans. She was like, well, there's nothing else. I'm not ready to go out and conquer the world like she did.
right.
What's the point? But overall, I thought that was a nice like ending to her tale. I thought it was nicely done.
Yeah. So actually, let's take a step back and say, so of the storylines. Well, actually,
Mhm.
we're talking about the whole series, so might as well forget about season 4. I just want to know like favorite character or arc, like storyline to follow throughout the whole
Um,
thing.
well, I really liked this is what I really liked about season 4, even though I know he said stay away from season 4. I
Oh no,
like
no,
how
that's fine. I just mean,
Alucard,
yeah.
yeah, how Alucard, Trevor, and Cypher got back together. I liked them as a trio. And yeah, just their banter and their romance between Cypher and Belmont. I I think that was my favorite kind of two two favorite characters, and Alucard coming into the mold was just you know topped it off. So they, I guess overall, like Trevor and Cypher's like arc didn't. It was they were just basically fighting demons for like most of
For
the
yeah.
last 3 seasons. Yeah. Um, as whereas Alucard has had a bit of a more of an arc, coming to grips with killing his father and being alone and not having like two of the only people that he actually connected with on like a personal level. Um, so I thought he had more of an arc, but I just liked them three as a trio, and I just thought the um the action sequences at the end of like season 4 where they're all battling together was just like really good because you saw like their friendship and how they were just fighting for one another. It's really good.
And also just how like in tune they are with each other. I thought that fight
Yeah,
scene, the big fight scene against like the generic 4 vampires with magic
yeah.
powers.
I don't think any. I
They were
didn't
not named
recognize any
characters,
of
I don't
their.
think. Yeah,
Yeah,
it went
I
from
wonder if
we're.
they're part of the games because I didn't
Hmm.
recognize them.
It definitely went from like I'm the big bruiser guy who's escorting the 4 people holding a coffin to these are the badass mini bosses. But I think it was fine because it really just showcased. It got to showcase like them all fighting really well, but also in tune with each other. Like when they're each one-on-oneing, they're losing in that fight
Yeah,
scene, and then the turning point of that battle was essentially when they started helping each other, and then they all their movements became in concert. Like so, like all the bad, like the 4 mini bosses basically just died at the same time from not the
yes,
people they were fighting, right? Like
yeah,
Trevor throws the thing, and it secretly is actually going to help out someone else who's in trouble, even though he's in trouble. And
yeah,
then same thing with the fire blast up to cut the lines, holding Alucard. Like the whole thing was kind of like I'm in trouble, but I gotta save my friend, and they're all thinking
yeah.
about that, and they're all in sync about it. So now suddenly they went from being on the back foot
Mhm,
against their various vampire assailants to beating them by not fighting for themselves. And I just thought it was a
mhm.
really like, first of all, it just looks fucking cool, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
oh no,
it was
wait, I got
nuts.
you, and you got me, and I got you, and it just looks cool. And now suddenly we're all just like, fuck you. But also, it's like you said, it's very poetic. I think that's like the ultimate moment of the whole, like bringing them together, and you're like, this
Yeah,
is celebrating those 3 characters' journey throughout the whole series. I thought it was like a
mhm,
really well done action scene because it was doing
yeah,
the thematic stuff as well.
yeah. Those action scenes are pretty crazy, and yeah, just that whole last couple episodes, just like really good. And I like the action scene with oh gosh, what's the badass vampire woman? She puts on like a metal armor. She just
Oh,
kills
and yeah,
everybody
it's
in the
her like
village.
day armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the 4 sisters. I can't remember what
Yeah.
her name was now.
Just nuts. When she just killed so many people. It's like and when talking about it being for adults, it's like good amount of gore. I like that.
Oh, so
In
much blood in this
any
show.
yeah, so much blood. And this season was definitely less raunchy than the previous season, in terms of like sex scenes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
'Cause season 3 was damn. It's
Yeah.
basically softcore. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the only thing like they allude to the Belmont and Sypha like sleeping together, but you don't really like they don't bother dwelling on that they're doing it. Which I think
Yeah.
is smart because then it would just be sort of titillating. Like in the previous seasons, it was about them sort of letting their guard down. So there was like
Mhm.
some notion. I mean, obviously it's for titillation as well, but like now it's like, well, they're clearly banging all the time while they're on the
Yeah.
road. They've been on the road together. They're clearly a thing. So we don't need to dwell on that. Instead, it
Mhm.
becomes like, right before Trevor thinks he's sacrificing his life, he's like, I gotta actually say the words now.
Yeah. I
Um,
like that. Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, oh no, Trevor can't die. But I'm glad, you know, it's like, okay, we can't kill off our main characters. That seems like a bit of a cop out,
Yeah.
usually. I like that they didn't kill him off in this one. I liked that, what's his name? With the, going
Uh,
through the mirrors. Uh,
what is his name?
we've forgotten everybody's name.
Saint Germain.
Yes. I thought that was because his arc was like, okay, he's, you know, you believe he's a good guy in like season 3, and it's I thought his turn to like the dark side was it felt a bit rushed. It's like, who is this? We know that he's trying to search for someone, but him sacrificing his humanity just like that for it,
So yeah,
I don't
let's
know. It felt a bit of a shortcut, but I like that he had his redemption right there at the end,
yeah
to
let's
get
let
Trevor back.
let's
Mm.
let's talk a little bit more about that storyline, just because I think there's so much intertwiningness. I think the easiest way to keep track of things is to maybe tackle the characters and their stuff. But yeah, so Saint Germain's like arc in the season is essentially, so at the end of last season he gets into the corridor, right?
Yes, the
With
corridor.
with the and then they have to fight what comes after that and all that. And he essentially gets lost and somehow emerges again, and we're not really sure what's going on. But he essentially allies with the vampires to resurrect Dracula, but he wants to do it so that he can make
The
a
corridor.
yeah make a thing that lets him have control over the corridor, because it's like a perfect amalgam of a male and female soul,
Yeah.
roughly, thing. And it turns out that like the big twist on that was it was never really going to do that. It was Death manipulating him. And
Mm.
so we see him in the corridor, and he's just looking for this woman that we only ever really see in shadows, right? And then that's why he lost her in the corridor. That's why he wants to get back. That's why he in the previous seasons he was, he has his, he's always a morally gray character because he wants to
Yes.
see this woman forever. That's his driving motivation, and he'll sacrifice to a certain extent. But then, yeah, it's very strange because this character he meets in the corridor, who's just like, I got all the power, you can too, but
Yeah.
but you remember you're also an alchemist, and so you should the ultimate prize of alchemy is making this Regis, something like that. This magic,
Yeah.
you like perfect being thing. So you shouldn't let go of those roots. And like that, he's like, you're right. I am an alchemist, so
Mm.
I need to do both to find the person and the thing. And conveniently, the alchemical goal will help me find the woman. And I felt like I think that scene was just really clunky, as you
Yeah,
said.
because it was all in like a flashback as well. So it was like they were. Yeah, it's like they like had to shoehorn Death in as like the main character, the main boss at the end, the main
Yeah.
culmination. And it was like, this is, let's just shove it in here and this like, give this character this motivation, which, yeah, I thought it was a bit rushed, a bit off. As I said, I like Death being in there at the end, but it's a nice callback, and the look, the character design in the
Oh,
show and
fucking
the
cool.
yeah, it's really cool. It's different to the games, but it's
Hmm.
it's like that's not even a problem because it's just so cool. But yeah, it felt a bit shoehorned in, and a bit too convenient. But
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
like
think,
that he got his redemption at the end
yeah.
because
So
it's
I,
like I always saw that character as, yes, you say morally grey, and he was like a trickster, and but seems like, yeah, that 180 was just a bit too jarring, a bit too much whiplash in how quick that happened.
yeah, and like I like the idea of him being tricked by death, and I think like if you ignore how he did the 180, the rest of it kind
Mm,
of makes sense. Like, oh, I now think the best way to get my goal is to do this, and I've lost my humanity because. But I think the problem was the scene leaned too much heavily on oh, you're an alchemist, so do X, rather than this is
yeah,
the only way to get your woman, and you're one of the few people who can because you're an alchemist, so you have to do this, you have to lean into this death alchemy, death magic thing.
yeah,
And I feel like
yeah.
it swapped goals in a way that you're like, I don't think he's really been caring about being an alchemist for the entire time I've seen him. He just is an alchemist, right? Like that's where it didn't make sense. But then, again, take it in stride, and you're like, okay, he's now lost in thinking this is the only goal. And I like the idea that Death sweet talked him in the abstract, just not in the way it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so Death's just like the key that opens doors, like basically that here's some minor control over the infinite corridor. Here's a magic key that's full of human souls. You're like, so wait, Death, who just cares about eating souls, his plan is to get Dracula back and really crazy so that Dracula will just kill all the people so that Death can eat all their souls once they die. Now, at some point, he stopped eating and started putting his food in a key.
Hey, Death has his ways.
It was
I'm
like,
not one to question.
I mean,
yeah,
regular viewers.
There seems like some, some narrative loose ends there, but.
But so I say that because at first you could be like, oh, maybe it's a different thing, but he does mention when he's under the guise of the crazy alchemist woman in the corridor, like this is infused with all these souls, and he keeps talking about how that's his food and that's all he wants. But also when to power up to be like, when he shows his true form, he's like, I don't know, 12 feet tall, and then he powers up by eating the key. And then he becomes, like 3 stories, 4 stories, like taller than the castle, essentially, which is a very cool boss to fight, etc. But then you're like, no, now you've put a hat on it, Show. It's definitely his food. And it makes the loose ends kind of worse, but it's very common to have motivations not make sense in retrospect when there's a twist. It's just a little unfortunate, but like you said, I like that. Also, the way so then Saint-Germain is like in the like basically he makes the Dracula horror thing, hermaphrodite thing, but then Trevor has his new spinny 4-pointed sword and it's really cool because he has this pouch of holy water and he squirts it out and throws the 4-pointed sword that spins through the water, getting each of the points getting coated in holy water, and then saw blades through the hermaphrodite thing.
Trevor knows what he's doing,
Oh yeah, I mean I think that's my favorite part about Trevor is he just knows weapons because
he makes things work. That's what I like. He's like, this will do. This is a broomstick. I'll still impale a demon on it, so yeah. I'm thinking if I don't remember that weapon in
the game.
Any of the games I've played. I've not played all of them. I've played apart from the 3D ones. I've played most of the 2D ones, so I'm just thinking, what was that? I would have it would have been cool if it was like a boomerang or something.
Well, he kind of treated it like a boomerang. He threw it much like Captain America's shield, where he just throws it in such ways that it comes back to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then it breaks because it's killing the resurrected Dracula and his wife. And one of the things goes into Saint-Germain's chest, and he's like, we think he's dead. But I really like how right in the final moments of Trevor attacking Death, we see Saint-Germain beside the key and his hand twitches, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's only post facto when Trevor reemerges into weeks later and explains what happens. You're like, you did. That was Chekhov's hand twitch. Although then you're like, so Death ate the key that was soul powered to get that big, but he left some food in the key, so the key still worked.
He pooped it out right away.
But no, I mean, obviously I'm being nitpicky. I think I like it narratively that there was enough juice in the key, and Saint-Germain could just do something, like you said, to get that that return to his humanity. But yeah, overall, I really liked him as a character. I liked that he was super flawed and wore his flaws on his sleeve, but except for the way he was turned. Like you could
Yeah.
believe he could get turned. I think that's why it's kind of forgivable. The 180
Oh yeah.
sucked, but it was like, again, if you ignore how it happened, you could easily see him kind of, well, now I'm in on this track, so I guess I'm just gonna run full force into not like pushing my humanity down,
Yes.
sacrificing human lives for my end goal because I'm already here. You could believe that
Hmm.
of his moral grayness, that like once he's in
Exactly.
it,
Yeah.
he's in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I just think it's basically how much time they had. I mean, if there was like an extra episode where it's like not all of his arc, but if it was just told in more than one flashback, you could definitely see him going towards the dark side, because of his morally ambiguous nature. So yeah, it was just a bit too quick and convenient. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think all the voice acting is great, and whoever voice acted him was really pulled off that kind of like slightly very charming but slightly seedy kind of demeanor to
yeah,
his character. So
but also
yeah.
like the really like kind of maniacal. Like he's very
Mm,
calm when he's like setting things up and telling his
yeah.
plans to Trevor and all them, right? But it's still like there's this edge of I'm on the edge. I'm
Yeah.
falling. Like he's so even when he's calm, there's this manic energy in the voice acting, which is really well pulled off. Let's talk about Hector and Lenore. We kind of did briefly, but like their arc I really liked as well because there were essentially not a lot happened like as far
Hmm.
as like action. Most of the this entire season it was them both being in the castle, right?
Yeah.
But so much happened between their interplay and also their personal power struggle. Like they both are clearly fond of each other, but also cutthroat people.
Yeah, it's like a charged relationship where it's like neither of them should be in it, but and they know they shouldn't be, and yet they still are. And it's like, yeah, it seemed, but I felt like I think he always knew that he was planning his escape, so he did feel like a bit, standoffish at times. And it's like, I think she's more convinced about this than he is. I think he's just playing along. Um, so that it's like, yes, I'm going along with your plan, but he was always, plotting something in the background. I think Lenore was just like, okay, Carl Miller's doing this. I've got charge over Hector. I can just sit back and relax, and it feels like she took her eye off the ball. Both
Yeah.
being like slightly fond of um Hector, and also it's like, okay, well, I'm not out on the front lines fighting. I'm just the strategist, and seems like Camilla's doing her own thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that speech she has about how well there's no space for me basically. She's like Camilla is like I want to take over the world. And then so she
Hmm.
points out there's no diplomacy in that.
Yes.
I'm not brokering peace if you're just going to attack everyone. And I think that like I've lost my place in this in my like group of four sisters. That's I
Hmm.
think what fuels her letting her guard down against like it's like her hubris of I'm a vampire, you're a human, and I fucked you so I could put this ring on you. You're mine. I don't have to
Yeah.
worry about you. So like it's too much faith in her plan having worked, and then her and
Yeah.
also feel like being lost. I think is a
Yeah.
big part
For sure.
of why she yeah like you said she dropped the ball, and I think it's again really well written because it starts like last season it was very much the Lenore like she's the one who got him to do like she got them an army basically right by tricking
Hmm.
Hector she got him to be able to make new beasts for them make their remake their armies after the big losses in the previous seasons. She did all the work for the foursome and then she's being pushed out and then she's done, right? It's just
Yeah.
and so she because she doesn't have a place with her sisters or the court or whatever, and she just doesn't pay attention. Meanwhile, Hector is like driven, confused, right? Both of our necromancers, I can't remember what they're actually called. Essentially necromancers. So
Yeah.
What's the other guy's name again?
Isaac.
Isaac. Yeah, Hector and Isaac
Mhm.
are like these tortured humans who have realized their arc is basically we hate humanity so much we're going to be on Dracula's side, and then oh, actually, there's a different way.
Mhm.
But Hector's also like, I want out. I want my like. I don't want to be dead. I don't want to be a slave. And so yeah, we know he's planning his escape because he like trades for mirrors to talk to other people to get these, and he's like planted these stones throughout the hallways to get access to the roof, but also the main chamber room. And he's very aware of like it's either I'm fight killing someone or I'm fleeing, but this route lets me do both. And then so when
Yeah.
Isaac comes with his army, he's like, I don't want to join you in this way, but here's the shortcut.
Yeah.
And also now she's trapped, so you can just win. Like
Yeah.
she's not going anywhere, so either she wins or you win, but you have an army and she's by herself. And yeah, like you said, I think it was just him realizing he was being underestimated as a human,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the points the show makes about the non-Dracula Alucard um, vampires, right? Is
Yes.
that they just are these like static, hubristic, we are better
Yeah.
things.
And I thought that was captured when the two other sisters were like out on the road and they were saying like they will always fight back, even though they're lesser beings. They have numbers and they will always fight
Yeah,
back. Like these guys were fighting in a village with like pitchforks for save a bit of straw or something.
yeah,
It's like they will always fight back. But yeah, and you could tell in like just the demeanor of like Lenore how she just got like more comfortable. Like she was just like sitting there like she was with like a like a pet, just like
mm,
chilling there, and rather than being like a bit more forceful and authoritarian in like a demeanor, like it felt like she just got too comfortable. So yeah, and I feel like her death by walking into the sunlight was like her realizing that it's like it's like her conceding. It's like I let my guard down. Might as well just go out now.
yeah. Like go out on my own terms,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Mm.
But also her final line, right? So it's a nice callback to season 3 where like Hector made a big deal about being able to see the sun and being given
Yeah.
outside time, and so she goes, I just want to see what the big deal is that you've been making out of this. And then she sun hits her and she's like mid
Is this it?
disintegration. He's like, oh, is that
Yeah.
all? Oh, you fool,
Yeah.
or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's such a good moment of like there's like love in her voice, but also
Mhm.
just pure condescension.
Yeah.
Right? And
It's
it's
like, oh,
like
you humans.
that is their
It's like we could have
relationship.
just killed you all. This is all you want, then.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I really like that. I also like that
me too.
he sort of his arc ended with her just like right before she kills her like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I don't know, maybe write a book, warn
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And that's why the novelization of the next video game will be written by written by Hector. But yeah, I like that he sees a future, right?
Mm,
And
yeah,
that the future
him and
isn't the
Isaac. Yeah.
fight. And I think that was a nice fitting way for him to like the last really thing he did as far as battle was give Isaac a path forward and free himself at
Yeah.
the same time, right? Cut off his finger so he could
Hmm.
then go against the sisters. Um,
I'm wondering if that would be different if like Dracula had been resurrected though, if they both would have had that turn. It seems like Isaac might have been a bit more further down, like going towards like, okay, not all humanity's bad.
mm,
Just, on the time that he had outside of um, the castle and stuff like that. But it seems like I don't know, it seems like if Dracula was still there, maybe Trevor would have just kept on making his monsters. Um, he seemed like maybe this is all I want to do. It seemed like Isaac had more of a time to reconcile his, internal demons and um, do that rather than Hector. Sorry. Um, yeah, so I'm wondering if Dracula came back.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
a,
they would have just made more monsters together. Be like a cool bro team of just necromancers. I don't
yeah.
know.
I mean, I think that you bring up a good point, which is that Isaac's arc was essentially finding space in the world for people to flourish,
Yeah,
realizing that this power stuff, this constant battle, this hatred for humanity was sort of not well founded, right?
yeah.
Making his well, sorry, before we go to Isaac, while Hector was essentially like, oh, there's a human there, some of these vampires have humanity. Like, it was essentially just, oh, Lenore's not a terrible person, she
Hmm.
is a vampire. I kind of have faith in living creatures in a different way. And that just like seemed to turn off his anger at the world.
Yeah.
But you're
Mm.
right. It's like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
if
True.
but like, I think it's much more less clear whether it was like, I've been stuck in a room with her and building a hammer to make monsters. So it's hard to tell whether he's really whether he's grown like a heart for other creatures other than her, or
Yeah.
whether, and I think that's what they like, I'll wander the world and warn them by writing a book about what we've learned. I think that was a way of showing that it wasn't just Lenore. But it seems quite plausible that like if Dracula came back, he could have, like you said, just fallen back into old habits and continued on, because yeah, his sort of arc was less clear.
Um, it felt like Isaac was out of rehab longer than Trevor, so it
Mm,
feels like he probably would be the least one to relapse into the path of making demons for Dracula again. But it, Isaac only had like a bit of screen time, but it didn't feel like uh, you know, it didn't feel like too little because I thought like every time he was on the screen, like you could see his character growing and more. I thought that the conversation that he had with like that demon,
yeah,
that weird one about like how it's like you're only evil because you were taught to like be that you were resurrected for this purpose, but you can like it doesn't have to be that way. You can also be like to rebuild, and it's like you have to change your inner nature and like what your purpose was, but it can be done. So I thought that was a really good bit of dialogue and writing and character growth.
I agree. I think what I think yeah, that I really liked that arc between them, and that conversation that showed it off. And I think one of the reasons why it works so well, despite his lack of screen time, especially because he's basically not in the last 3 episodes or something, because he, once he kills Carmela, he's basically just like, he's referred to by Hector and Lenore, but he's not even shown. There's like, Isaac's
Yeah.
keeping us here. Because he's done his thing, right? Because what I think what was key, is between seasons he learns about the tower and the
Hmm.
magician who he fought, right? That he takes, and like his growth is actually not in this season. He's already figured that out, and it's that he gets to, rather than us having to see him change, which would have certain pacing marks, otherwise it would feel forced. He's grown and he's explaining his change of view over time, over a few episodes, to this demon. And I think
Yeah.
was such a smart writing thing, because then you don't know, you don't have to worry about, oh, that was too quick, because it's just, we don't know how long it took, we don't know what he went through, we just know this is his new point of view, and he's explaining it, and he's explaining it in this really novel way that's like transformative to a demon beast thing, right? He's convincing his point, this demon beast thing, of his new point of view, and that's crazy in and of itself that it seems to be working. And because of that, you just accept that he's gone through it, and I think that's why that works, is
Yeah.
because we don't have to like, we didn't have to sit with him at each stage of him going from, I'm going to destroy everything, I'm amassing an army, I'm coming here for power, to, I want to rebuild this and then we'll leave just in case
Mm.
someone wants to make a home of it. Like, that's like, he spends weeks or months, right? Like, forcing his army to rebuild the city that he sacked.
Yeah.
And it's not and then I will tell people about it. It's just in case someone finds this, they can make a home.
Yeah,
I'm willing to
and
put all this effort in, and not just so that people might be able to find a home here, and they might not forever, right? Like,
yeah,
and that shows just how much he wants the world to be better, not worse.
yeah, and it's as I say, it's like you wouldn't go into like a Castlevania TV show or like anything like following this like kind of you know arc against like good versus evil, vampires versus
Yeah.
humans. Like not many things in especially the video games, but in media sometimes where it's like they don't always give humanity to what is classed as evil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, coming out of this where it's like, oh, they're actually like giving redemption arcs to like Isaac, who you think like there's no redemption for you, or even like the demons themselves. It's like it wasn't expected. I thought it was just if you asked me starting season one, I just thought it'd be Trevor killing things with a whip for 4 seasons, which would have been great as well. But yeah, there's depth and nuance to even like the characters that you'd say just like quote unquote evil, no redemption. But so yeah, really well written
Yeah.
arc for Isaac.
Yeah, and
Mm.
like you said, this like up until that point, those monsters were like just, hey, there's a
Cannon
power to
fodder,
make
really.
humans
Mm.
into like just basically bring them back from hell, and they have these. They're just crazy, mindless beasts of destruction, and that's why they're the two necromancers are like so pivotal, is because every dead human becomes just a mindless beast that's worth way more. So
Yeah.
you like the armies replenish themselves, etc., etc. That's the point. That's why Dracula has both of them. That's why Lenore gets the four vampire princesses, queens, whatever you want to call them, a necromancer, because this is how you
Mhm.
win, right? And then to have just one demon have something like a soul, have something like a question, like not only are we does the show invite questioning, or is their nature actually evil,
Yeah.
but also clearly something, that internal struggle happens, and that demon isn't just a demon by the end of it, which answers the question, right? Like then all of them have a chance at this. They're not these mindless do your bidding, because they're sort of treated as like a robot army almost, right? Like it's a
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can tell you what to do and you just do it and you are destructive.
I thought that duality is good because, like, you see those demons as just like cannon fodder,
Hmm.
made to cause destruction, and like it's the same way as like, you know, a lot of the vampires view the humans. It's like they're like pigs. Let's just
Yeah.
farm them all and put them into pens. So, yeah, I like that kind of duality between the ideas and notions of just like these are ours to control, and they don't actually have purpose and autonomy, or at least the vampires think, okay, humans shouldn't. So I liked that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Where are we? So the other thing I guess would be I mean, we talked a bit about Carmela and but I mean the other sisters, I liked that their arc was very simple, but it was
Yeah.
essentially, hey, it's not actually the foursome show, and this isn't great for us, or whatever. And also, like, we
Yeah.
want to be together, and if we go to war, I'm strategy person, and you're front lines person, and we're not really doing this for what we want.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I like that they sort of learned that via this, like you said, this attack of the farmers, this like this is just like carnage for the sake of carnage is kind of what they came out with, which again shows this like redemption of their view of humans. Like I don't think they think
Hmm.
humans are on par with them. They still probably have this condescension, but they have a better depth of, right, this is not quelling people attacking us so that we keep our food supply in. This is us
Yes.
just destroying food and things
Mhm.
for the sake of it, and it's not even what we want. Again,
Yeah,
a nice little small puzzle piece into the general thematic puzzle of, like you said, this duality of what is autonomy and what it does mean for things to even be good or evil. That's kind of like those big moves in the sense of, all right, any no matter what race type of being you are, this show is saying you can go either way, kind of, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
It's just classic, foot soldier on the front lines questioning, "What am I doing this for? What is the meaning of this?" And it's like, yeah, them figuring out it's like, we can win all these battles, but we'll always lose the war. Why can't we just live peacefully? In terms of we've got what we want, we can always, survive. Um, as long as we, just eat a few humans now and then, it'll be fine. It's like, why will we continue to spend the rest of our lives fighting for this cause
yeah,
when ultimately we're probably not going to come out on top, and all we need to do is, survive. I think that was their motivation. It's just like, we've been doing this long enough. We're comfortable now. All we need to do is continue surviving. Why go for why go for everything? Why jeopardize everything? Why go for the double or nothing when you've got enough as it is already?
yeah,
Yeah. So
and that,
I appreciated how it's like they were just like, nope,
yeah,
don't need to do this. Yeah.
um, yeah,
It's
and
like
that,
we've been loyal long enough now. We've done it. We've done our dues.
but
Time to
but
go.
but also I think it sort of speaks to like Lenore's notion of like they were all looking for stability, and like they had this
Mhm,
small bit of the world that the four of them were ruling, and it all worked, and like they sometimes had to go to battle or whatever to protect this bit, and they just
mhm.
wanted the bit. And so when Carmela started pushing them to take more, then they had these questions, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what we want,"
Why?
like, and then but they actually realized that they don't even need the bit that they've been fighting in stable over. They need less than that. They don't like,
Yeah.
peace out. No, I'm not even going to go back
Yeah.
and tell her not to attack things. We'll just find our own way. This is
We'll just go live on a ranch in Middle America somewhere and just not talk to anybody anymore. But as you say, like, the power corrupts. Like, it wasn't always never going to be enough for Carmilla, and she's just
mm-hmm.
dragging the other foot soldiers into that war. And they realize that, yeah, this isn't ours to fight. We've got
Yeah.
what we want.
Well, and I think that they're them falling in love sort of
Mm,
um cemented that they had priority changes, right?
yeah.
It seemed very clear that this wasn't a thing that they had in the decades or centuries previously when they had this. The four of them were helping run this place, right? It seemed very much like this is a thing we have discovered, and now the stability we want is much smaller because it's about us and our survival, not our
Yeah.
little kingdom. Um, yeah. So I'm cognizant of time. Um, I think that's like all the main. Oh, I guess Alucard. Let's talk about him, and then I'm
Mm,
curious what we'll end the episode out with some chat about what we hope to see afterwards. Given that this timeline is 4 seasons, but like Alucard's had such an interesting arc. I think
mhm,
again, most of it seemed like he was just fighting, but it really wasn't. Like we ended last season with him seemingly getting like finding new companions, who he like led into his life,
mhm.
and you kind of got what were their names, Taka and Sumi.
Yes.
Thanks for the follow, Maz. um I clearly have screwed up the overlays as it's hiding there. Right. So, what was I saying? Yeah, there was this Taka and Sumi. He let them in, and you got the sense that it was because of his relationship with Trevor, and now I've forgotten her name.
Cypher. Yeah.
Sypha, thank you.
Yeah.
You get the notion that like he missed their companionship, and these were two new people that were you know struggling, and he let them in, and they betrayed him,
Mhm,
and so he starts with being this like curmudgeonly like hermit leave me alone.
Yeah.
I want to be alone in my misery. I've been betrayed, never again. And he sort of, it's, other, he puts them on stakes, but then we start the season and there's more bodies on stakes, so you get the idea that anyone who
Yeah.
comes by here ain't going to survive. And yet he there's a rider comes and says, we're your neighbors, we need your help, we're in this town a couple kilometers down the road. And he
Well, a
goes.
dead body
Yeah.
turns on a horse. Yeah, the horse asked that question. The
Yeah.
horse could speak. Yeah.
um but and so you see that it's very clear that he was hurt, but it hadn't
Yeah.
changed him. He wants companionship, he wants something. And then by the end of it, not only did he get convinced by Saint Germain, right, to let people into the castle for nefarious reasons of Saint Germain's, but also because it's just like, I want to do the right thing, I want to do good, I want to help people. And then it ends up being, I sure live outside of
Mhm.
my castle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's make a town.
Yeah, and I think that was just a continuing theme of, like, he's half human, half vampire, and
Hmm.
the last couple seasons with him, you know, uh, thematically battling with, his humanities. Like, we see that Alucard is, you know, got a lot of humanity, but it
Hmm.
feels like he's battling with that, knowing that he's, only half human, thinking, okay, I could really go into the dark side, as you say, like putting up, spikes with people and like that. But you always felt that it's like there's redemption for him. This isn't the Alucard. The Alucard that is more human. Um, so yeah, it was interesting to see him battle with that internally. But yeah, and as you say, I think I'm glad that it wasn't like Trevor and Cypher
Mm.
actually getting him out of that rut. I'm glad it was someone else because it kind of would have been bit too convenient if it was like, oh, the only people who can get him out of this rut are Trevor and Cypher because he
Yeah.
trusts those people. It felt more natural that he had to go outside of his comfort zone and seek that in someone else. So yeah, I
Yeah.
really like his arc. Mm.
Yeah. I also, what I really, really liked about it was that the mayor, who, their first meeting, she's like, you're a crazy person, but
Mhm.
you're the only thing I could think of. And then they grow to understand each other, and like the fact that in the final episode they have this like witty back and forth bantery thing about like, it was
Mhm.
my idea, no, it was my idea. It's like, oh, I just tricked you to your idea. It was very clear that they had something that they figured out early on that only developed more through battle and shared experiences, but
Mhm.
also yeah, that I think it was like, you are a thing that I will have to deal with, and I'm happy to like, you're the leader of these people, and you were saying these people are now here outside my house. But I'm good. I'm not only am I happy about that, like, oh, not only am I
Mhm.
okay with that, I'm happy about that. I want to help as much as I can.
Yes.
Um, and you get the sense that although he said like "Welcome to my village" to Trevor when Trevor shows up, it's like, well, she's still the leader of the village. You get the sense that like they will play slightly different roles, and that
Mhm.
they are still going to be equals, even though she's settling essentially on his land ish, although he doesn't have a claim to it because that's just where the castle blipped to several years ago or whatever. But yeah, I liked that they left them with this developing romance that had somewhat equal power, even though she's a human and he's a half human, half vampire who has a magic sword he can just tell to stab people. Um, right? Like, you get the sense that they are on the same page, which I think was kind of hard to do, you'd think, but it felt very fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I say, I like that they did spend the time to see how the characters would have reacted after all that trauma and all the destruction afterwards. So, um, yeah, yeah, I liked their little settlement that they were building there, and Did you get emotional at the very end of the at that episode when Trevor came back? Because I did, but I'm a little baby, so
When you say
I don't know.
emotional, do you mean teary-eyed, or
Yeah.
tears?
Well, not gonna say.
I mean, there's no judgment. Yeah, I think at first I was like, when I saw Trevor, I was like, oh, but he like, I really liked the way they killed him, right? With that
Mhm,
fade to white, the sacrifice. I liked that it was him sort of midair making this stupid knife that was Chekhov's knife from earlier in the season, like getting all the
mhm,
pieces and realizing it was a thing, but only because he's was raised reading these weird books or whatever.
mhm.
Um, and that's how he explains it. It's just like, oh yeah, I recognize this knife where a wizard basically made a murder suicide pact with God, so I knew I could kill death with it. And you're like, sure, sure, sure. Um, but yeah, I think at first I like my first reaction was, oh, it's Trevor, and then I was like, oh, they're taking away the death. But then I think
Mhm.
they made it work in the scene. Like you said, it gave the redemption to Saint Germain. It like yeah, it also like explained why. I think it was very smartly done by like teleporting him a couple weeks away. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like he's barely alive. How did he survive the 2 weeks on the horse? Who put him on the horse?
Mhm.
All kinds of questions you don't need to worry
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah.
Um,
It's like there's enough sadness in this show anyway. At least,
yeah,
give me
but
this.
exactly, and I think because we know it's the end of the series, and like I think it would be, I would have not liked it if they made it, like if they possibly made it open to a season 5, then I wouldn't have liked it, because I would have been like, we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. But this is just
Yeah,
like, we're saying goodbye to these people.
yeah,
She's pregnant. I like the like, she wants to leave, then she doesn't, and then he shows up, and now they can raise the kid together in this weird
yeah.
village underneath a magic castle. And I think it's because it's just a testament to how well they've done the characters and stuff, that
Yeah.
you're yeah, like you said, you're emotional, like, oh, he's back, oh good, not,
It's
oh,
fine.
they
Yeah.
killed him and made me feel like they killed him, and then they're not even like, and then they pulled the punch, because I think it made sense, because like it's in
Mhm.
midst, even like Dracula and Lisa, right? That's his wife's name. I can't remember.
Might be. Could
Well,
be.
Dracula and his
Probably.
wife, right? They come back. We don't know why, but they get
Mrs.
a
Dracula.
yeah. Dracula and Alucard's mom. Um,
Mrs. Tepes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's Lisa. But anyway, they all sort of they 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 just appear apparently, and get to have their own happy life, and like in the midst,
Yeah.
and we've got Hector and Lenore saying goodbye, and then Hector already saying, I'm just going to go off into the distance. We know Isaac's going to try
Mhm.
and do good, and so amidst all of these like loose ends being wrapped up, it's all feel good stuff, and so it makes
Yeah.
sense that Trevor emerges like narratively, and we're happy and we're okay, and we're painting a picture of them not having a perfect life, right, but just having a life moving forward, making this
Mhm.
town build up, etc. So I think it could have it just works because it's in the middle of a whole bunch of other loose ends being tied up, that you don't begrudge the pulled punch, because
Mhm.
you get the vibe of what they're trying to do at the end of this thing. Speaking of the end of this thing, as you said, they are planning more things in the Castlevania universe, but not with these characters. This was
Mhm.
a 4-season thing. I think it's really great because of that. Like I said, I would feel
Agreed.
worse about all the happy. Like I'd feel worse about like Dracula coming back. Um, if then there's like season 5, he's mad again because like a
Yeah.
pickpocket stabbed his wife, right? Like that would suck, right? And but what kind of things do you think they're gonna do? Slash,
Oh, I
what would
I
you
I
want? I
haven't a
guess.
clue. What I really want is more music, more Castlevania music in the show.
Mm,
So do whatever you want. I just want more music because I felt like there's probably a bit more Castlevania music, maybe one or two tracks in the previous series, but I don't remember hearing anything in this one. And like Castlevania is like some of the best music in video games of all time. So
mm.
put more of that in. Story wise, I don't know because like I think one of the most well-known characters in Castlevania, history is
Simon, right?
Alucard.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And they've done Trevor Belmont, so what they can do Simon Belmont. I don't know, but what this show, this series has given me faith in. Maybe it won't be the same like showrunners or writers, but what I have faith in is that they're not too precious about the source material, and they're willing to go, different places, and expand on the characters, and, as I say, not be too beholden to, Castlevania, the creatures, the monster designs, the character motivations. They can still, just use that as a template, um, and just go where they deem is good enough to tell a compelling story and attract a wider audience who are not Castlevania diehard fans. Because even who loves the series, I couldn't tell you anything about most of those stories other than Dracula got angry because people killed his wife, and he's got a castle, and there's mirrors of fates, and there's arias of sorrow, and and there's Symphony of the Nights, and that's it. And it's just I really couldn't tell you. Make Castlevania the musical.
Hmm.
They've got
Oh, I
musical
like that.
themes in like most of their um, titles,
Um,
subtitles. Make a
fair.
musical.
So, so Simon is uh a descendant of Trevor, right? Or is it the other way around?
It could be the other way
Ah,
around.
okay. I was hoping you might know.
As I said, who cares?
Well, I
Honestly,
was thinking that that might
they both
explain.
have wits.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking that might explain why we have the baby at the end. To be like
Yeah.
now, like so, because they could go either way, right? Because like we start in the series, the Belmonts are already condemned for no one knows really what
Mhm,
reason. People
mhm.
don't like them,
Yeah.
uh, and Trevor's basically the only one left, and people didn't even realize he was alive. So it was
Mhm.
like, okay, so they could either do a few decades before the downfall of the Belmonts. That would be an interesting story, especially because it would
Yeah.
be less Dracula focused, which I think would be a good thing. Because, like you said, it's
Mhm.
about using the world building they have, and telling an interesting, compelling story. And like you, yes, you could do that with Dracula, but it would really feel like retreading in certain ways because we already know sort of the Dracula arc, or
Mhm.
you go to like several generations down the line, and well, he's gone mad again. That kind of makes sense maybe in 200 years because like his wife is long dead or whatever. Like that, at least, even if it's a returning of the well, it kind of I think makes a little more sense without. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so I
I
wouldn't
don't
mind
know.
either of
I don't
those
know.
really.
Mm.
But
And
I would.
Simon is the kid of Cypher and Trevor Belmont.
Oh,
You were
just one
right.
generation. Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
Son.
it was for some reason several, but that's cool. So his name isn't Trover.
Yeah. No,
As
no, Simon. Yeah. Their little town is called Simon, apparently.
oh really?
So it's
Well,
gonna be. No, I'm just saying that because
oh
they were
right,
saying,
yeah,
oh, well, maybe we should name the town Trevor or whatever. It's like,
yeah,
no, gonna call it Simon instead.
yeah. Cool. Well, on that note, I think any last thoughts?
No, I really enjoyed it.
Would you recommend
Because
it to people who are not Castlevania game
absolutely,
fans?
yeah, yeah. Because you know me, I don't really watch anime, and if it got me to watch, then um, miracles can come true. But yeah, I think the story's really well done. The writing's fantastic. The animation's fantastic. And yeah, if people want something that's a little bit more adult, yeah, in terms of violence and sexual content, which people seem to love because some people like Game of Thrones for some reason. Watch this instead of Game of Thrones. That's what I tell people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also give this. I would recommend this. It was a lot better than I thought it would be, and like I
Agreed.
think it's a testament that even after the 4 episode season one, basically when a new series dropped within like a week or so, I'm watching it, which I don't normally. I'm not that slavish to watching things as soon as they're released, unless it's for something like this, right? And so like, but I like season 2 and 3. I was just like, oh, sweet, more Castlevania, and then it was like, I'm gonna binge this because I just want to see more of this story. And yeah, so definitely think it's worth it. I'm hoping that means not only because this was Netflix produced.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's produced by Frederator Studios, but it was like basically funded, like I think Netflix bought it. But I'm hoping this paves the way for more. Like Netflix buys a lot of anime sometimes, but I'm hoping we'll get more unique things coming
I
through.
think there's like a Resident Evil
Oh,
one coming, but I don't know anything
heaps.
about that. But yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, it's good to see that someone, Konami seem a little bit more precious over their IP than some other companies. Just to have that faith and let them take it into really really interesting places. So yeah, who knows what the next series is going to be, if it's even tangentially related to this series. A clean slate probably be nice for whoever's coming into it, and not to have to pay homage and do tie-ins to this series. So we'll see what that is, I guess.
Yeah.
Interested to see it. If it's bad, I won't watch it.
Nor should you.
No.
Excellent. Well, on that note, that's us for the week. If you enjoyed this, like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform or choice you are listening to this or watching it. Tell a friend, rate, review if it is on a podcatcher. And yeah, also check out outoflives.net for more pop culture, podcasty, video gamey stuff. And you can follow us on Twitter at Out of Lives Network, Out of Lives Net rather, or visit us on Facebook or YouTube as Out of Lives Network. And of course, you can reach Lucy at JuicyLuce9 on Twitter, Instagram, all of the things, and me at the Omniarch. You can reach us on email as well at podcast@outoflives.net if you want to tell us why we were totally wrong and Carmela should have won all of the things and it wasn't about redemption at all and it was poorly written, or whatever your hot take happens to be. That's us for another week. I've been Aadil.
I've been Lucy, the biggest geek.
Admitting it. Bye.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net